He's got one foot in the frying pan and one in the pressure cooker. Believe me, as a bowler, I know that right about now, your bladder feels like an overstuffed vacuum cleaner bag, and your butt is kind of like an about-to-explode bratwurst.
Hey, do you mind? I wasn't talking when you were bowling.
Was I talking out loud?
Welcome to Munsons at the Movies. My name is Kyle, once again being your host, joined by a whole gaggle of Munsons. I want to give them a wide berth.
He's what is called a born loser. A real Munson.
And talk a little bit about what's going on in the world. This time we'll start with Aubrey.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. I don't have to work. I've got absolutely nothing going on. I don't know what day of the week it is. I don't know what's happening in the world. All I know is that it's not cold here and it should be cold, and I hate that. One recommendation for the people, read the book, The Nickel Boys. Please read it before you watch the movie. I've heard the movie is incredible. But please read that book. It's one of the best books I've ever read by Colson Whitehead. And now that I've said this out loud, I realize that I've become every teacher that I made fun of when I was younger. Because I read the book over Christmas break.
Dork.
James, you're up.
It's happy it's the end of the year here, enjoying some end of the year traditions, which for me include seeing family and friends and getting illnesses from my nieces and nephews that are incredibly debilitating and borderline paralyzing.
Are you one of those norovirus statistics now?
Oh, no, but give it time. The night is young. It might happen.
Case.
I'm excited about the Kristen Wiig episode. This is one of the episodes that I've learned a lot about the actor that I did not realize. So I'm excited for tonight's discussion.
KFBR 392. KFBR 392. KFBR. Wait. I'm supposed to do an intro. I was doing some research. My bad, guys. I was trying to remind myself. I don't know. I've just spent the last 3 weeks with that license plate stuck in my head. So I'm just trying to be productive as a human during the holiday seasons. But I am excited to welcome back a couple guest Munsons. We've got Cori Wallace. She's still a 12-year-old latchkey kid with beyond basic cable in an adult woman's body. She once set her alarm at 3 a.m. to get up and watch the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Please don't tell her parents. She prefers to date guys who watch at least 3 movies a week, loves a good deep dive or think piece, and is a fan of this podcast. Cori previously joined us for the Natasha Lyonne, Aubrey Plaza, Tyler Perry, Dakota Johnson, and Lucy Liu episodes. Welcome back, Cori. But she's not the only one. We've got 2 guests with us, and one of the OG Munsons is back, making his return back to the pod for the first time since Susan Sarandon, which I think was in like the 50s or something like that. He had a little free time over the holiday break. He heard that we needed help thwarting the dreaded Dieter von Kuntz, and he said he's up for the challenge. So welcome back, Warren.
Happy to be back. January 9th, new year, new me, doing great. My wife and I love to say new year, new loofah. So go ahead and change out those loofahs in your shower if you hadn't already.
I did one yesterday.
Yeah.
That's good.
All's well. Happy to be back. Ready to, like you said, pound some cunt.
Let's go. Why don't we jump to birthdays? January 9th, Warren's going to step back into the saddle on this one, and let's see who he's got for us.
January 9th birthdays. We're going to start with probably the most notable actor that we got. J.K. Simmons recently played Santa in Red 1. Whiplash, Juno, Spider-Man, Arrested Development. I mean, you name it. He's got the phenomenal voice to play it. Not only was he Santa, but he could beat the shit out of me with that physique.
He's pretty jacked as Santa.
How old would I have to, this guy, explain to my kids I got beat up by someone this age?
He looks pretty old. He's just in great shape.
It's that DC physique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember J. Jonah Jameson being jacked, but he's jacked for sure.
Imagine if he was that jacked during Whiplash. The movie would not be nearly as good.
It would be a completely different film. It'd be bullying.
I think it's still bullying.
I'm going 70.
I'm going to go 1 year for every push-up he can do in a minute. So I'm going to say 67.
73.
I mean, Aubrey nailed it on the head. He turned 70. Just incredible. My dad just turned 70, and he doesn't look a thing like J.K. Simmons. Next up, we've got famous actor Dave Matthews from You Don't Mess with the Zohan. You Just Go With It, and I now pronounce you Chuck and Larry.
Nails the gay guy in those films, I'll tell you what.
Always. You Don't Mess with the Zohan. Definitely the most evil villain in any one of his movies.
I think Dave Matthews is a year for every show he's probably done in the past week. So that would make him 61?
58.
Give me 62.
Oh, man.
I have no idea where to even begin on this.
Yeah, I don't either.
I couldn't pick this dude out of a lineup. If you could show me a picture right now, you put 3 pictures, I have no idea which one is him. 55.
James on the dot, 58.
All right.
Finally, this actor is in American Reunion, Sharknado 3, Oh Hell No, and The Rookie CTU in 2007. That is Chad Johnson, Chad Ochocinco. So how old is Ocho?
He looks like he can still play.
He does.
He's
Also, you guys know the deal here. I'm giving away my secrets. You got to go the over on whatever you're thinking.
I think Ocho is 43.
no, that's way too old. I felt like he just stopped playing. 37.
If Chad Johnson is my age, I will leave this podcast right now.
Oh, you're right.
Forever.
God damn it. You're right.
Because that means I have underachieved supremely.
No, that's really good reasoning you just used. Damn it.
I'm going to go 45.
Ocho Cinco is 85, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to go 42 and a half, but then I got to round up, so I'm going to join Kyle with the 43.
Ocho turns 47.
Damn it.
Jesus, James.
I was off by only a decade.
Dude looks awesome. As for all the other people who I didn't recognize when Kyle sent their names, other than recognizing the name Nina Dobrev, happy birthday, I guess.
5 actors we threw on the wheel for episode 112. They were Amy Smart, Greta Gerwig, Kathleen Quinlan, Damian Bashir, but it doesn't matter because the wheel selected Kristen Wiig. Corey decided to come join us for Kristen Wiig, and Warren said, hey, I'm free then, so let's do that. Kristen's got 108 credits, 14 producing credits. She's written 4 projects, and she's got a boatload of SNL award show appearances over the years. So we got a lot to look at and to review here. But before we get into the nitty-gritty details, well, we start with a little actor trivia to see if James can stump us Fast and Furious style.
So, Warren, I don't know if you remember these rules.
Yes, I do, James. Don't patronize me. That's my job as a teacher.
3 facts here, 2 of which are going to be true about Kristen Wiig. 1 is not going to be true about her, but is going to be true about one of the many illustrious cast members of the Fast and Furious franchise. You guys got to guess which one that is. Fact number 1, was named one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people in the world in 2019. Fact number 2, was a waitress at the cafeteria in Universal Studios prior to breaking into acting, often serving producers and actors she would eventually work with. Fact number 3, was hired to work in a doctor's office, but before the job began, she spoke to a psychic who said she should pursue acting and writing in LA, and she moved to LA the next day.
Oh, come on.
Damn it, dude.
All right, I think the lie is number 1 because that is about arguably the most influential person in movie world and the real world, and that's clearly Vin Diesel.
Mm-hmm.
Gino Chiaretta.
I'm going to say number 3, and I'm not exactly sure who the person is, but I believe it's the key grip on the upcoming untitled Hobbs and Shaw sequel.
Yeah, the guy's got a lot of influence.
Yeah.
Nah, Warren, everybody knows that there's nobody more in touch with psychics that led to his entertainment career than Ja Rule, so it's got to be Ja.
I totally believe that. That makes so much sense.
Warren stole Kyle's bet. Kyle tried to steal my bet. I'm sticking to my guns, though, metaphorically. And even though 106 & Park is probably shot in New York, I'm assuming, and this guy got famous off that, I'm going to circle back because I assume James is going to circle back eventually. It's number 3, but it's MC Jen.
I see it trying to play chess. I like that.
I'm going to go with Case. I'm going to double down. I'm going to go with that. I'm going to vote number 1.
I believe no one picked number 2, which was she was a waitress at Universal Studios, which is true. She worked a few odd jobs when she moved to LA to make ends meet, and one of them was a waitress at the cafeteria in Universal Studios. And she told a funny story where she'll run into people on TV shows or movies, and she's like, where do I know this person from? And then she'll like remember their order and tell it back to them and be like, oh, right, you used to get Cobb salads from me. And be like, oh, that's uncomfortable, but very funny.
Yeah.
Fact number 3, she was hired to work in a doctor's office, but the day before the job began, she spoke with the psychic who said she should move to LA to pursue acting, and she moved the next day. That's true.
Wow.
Yeah, she has a theory that she uses still to this day, which is if she looks in the mirror and asks herself a question, that the truth will emerge, right? She was living in Arizona at the time in her 20s, and she asked herself, what do I want to do with my life? And she's like, I want to move to LA and try acting. She was kind of shocked, but she had heard that from a teacher, and she's like, maybe I should do that. The next day, she took a trip to a local psychic, and the psychic said that exact thing. And she's like, well, that's just the sign. She left the next day and drove to Los Angeles.
That's wild.
Fact number one. So Kristen Wiig was actually named one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people in the world in 2012. On that list is also Barack Obama, Harvey Weinstein, Louis C.K., a bunch of really, really influential people. But it was actually in 2019, it was Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson who was named one of Time's most 100 most influential people in the world. Case, great guess with Vin Diesel. You almost got him, almost on the button. But Vin Diesel didn't play Luke Hobbs in the Fast and Furious franchise, which is probably why he was left off this list.
Those are awesome.
I'm sure that's also the first time someone's used Barack Obama and Louis C.K. in the same sentence.
No, actually, Time Magazine did in 2012.
It wasn't a sentence. Well, that was a run on you, dick. Well played.
So she makes decisions based on her mirror?
It's like a self-affirmation. It's like, what do I want out of life? And I'm looking myself in the face, and it's like, I know what I want. I just am afraid to say it out loud. And then she says it.
That's a first. I've never heard this before.
It's kind of woo-woo.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Good work, James.
Appreciate it.
All right, Case, tell us a little bit about her box office snapshot.
Kristen Wiig has had a robust career doing movies, all fronts of the box office standpoint. Apparently, a lot of decisions were made using her mirrors because she's made a lot of money. She's done small budget indie films like The Skeleton Twins, which had $1 million budget, franchise films like Ghostbusters, animated franchises like How to Train Your Dragon, and even a DC film in Wonder Woman 1984. Her biggest box office earnings come from her participation in the Despicable Me franchise. That franchise has world grossed $3.1 billion over 4 movies, which is wild. And Wonder Woman is her biggest loss, losing $30 million in the box office. Here are the numbers that we use to compare our actors. Average budget, she's 25th with $51.5 million. Total box office, 8th with $8.7 billion. Star meter, at the time of recording, she's 50th at 880. Critic ranking, she's 14th at 64.6, which was a bit of a surprise to me. Fan ranking, 56th at 59.2%. 30th and 46th in 2 different box office metrics, ranking her 29th out of 112. Thoughts?
Pretty high.
Way better than I thought it was going to be.
Agreed.
It's always the animated movies that throw me off whenever it comes to like earnings.
Yeah.
Despicable Me and How to Train Your Dragon, they probably account for 2/3 of her world gross.
Right.
This kind of like oddly tracks for me. She's well known. People know who she is. They identify her by her name and all that kind of stuff. She's been a part of big stuff, which helps people knowing who she is. Animated movies do well at the box office, and they do well with critics. Her comedies kind of hit. She doesn't have a ton of like duds that I can think of, and she has a pretty solid indie track record.
I think she really picks and chooses what she wants. She takes breaks when she needs to, and we'll get into that. But it seems like she does what she loves, and she does a hell of a job doing it.
She was also on SNL for how many episodes? 139 episodes.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Plus, she hosted 5 times, right?
Yeah, she's in the 5 Timers Club. So that would mean that she was in front of an American audience from 2005 to 2019. Even if that's just hosting one time a year, that's an insane amount of reach with a comedy audience that's already tuned in.
She was a stalwart on that lineup, almost appointment television whenever she was doing a skit.
Yep.
In the last 20 years, looking at her IMDb star meter, you don't find very many instances of her below about 300. Like Audrey's saying, she's been her name has stayed fresh.
She's attached to big stuff.
Uh-huh.
So like big stuff just seems to continuously happen. Like even outside of like Saturday Night Live.
So let's get into the nitty-gritty details of who she is as a human and as a performer. So before first major role, we'll talk about kind of early days. And again, this is where James and others will pepper some things. And if I miss anything big here. But she was born in Canandaigua, New York. I think I got that correct. Thankful to my trusty Google friend here. In 1973 in New York. She moved to Lancaster at 3, attended high school in Rochester, New York, up in RIT territory. Had a very short stint at Roanoke College before she returned back to Rochester. And then at one point she was majoring in art at the University of Arizona. Almost every art major, there was probably a evaluate your life moment to go like, what should I be doing with my major and my career? But while she was there, she was encouraged to act. And after she kind of went into this whole acting binge and a little bit of what James talked about, like kind of taking a chance, she relocated to LA and joined the Empty Stage Comedy Theater and the Groundlings. And we've talked about the Groundlings a lot over the years of this podcast and how that was a hotbed for comedic actors coming up through the improv ranks.
Who encouraged her to act? Was it her mirror? Mirror, mirror on the wall type of a thing?
She took an acting class in college at Arizona, and her teacher was like,
Okay.
"You're pretty good at this. You should actually give it a shot." And I'm assuming a teacher who has someone who's even like kind of talented in acting might push them to do that.
Interesting.
She will very proudly state that she's an introvert. And she's like, when I'm at parties, I'm not the person who commands the room like other, SNL cast members. She's like, I'm very much reserved into myself. And so, doing comedy where you are the focus, she's like, that was not something I was used to.
And you could see that much from all of her interviews. She'll be in an interview with Will Ferrell, and she's more than happy to take the back seat and let their personalities kind of own that space.
She's great as a comedy foil.
Probably needed to knock out an elective
Yeah.
at U of A, and it turned out to be a game changer.
Yeah, I never heard that. I heard from 2 other teachers and 2 other majors that it's probably not for me. So.
Yeah, I share that story as well.
Before she got into SNL, the Joe Schmo Show, she played Dr. Pat the Quack in 2003, 9 episodes of that. I read that they encouraged her to audition for SNL while she was on that show.
It's interesting.
Is it the one where the guy is in a reality show and he doesn't realize it? And they're at the end, they're like, "You're Joe Schmo, you're the big winner." And he like starts crying because he likes all of his cast members.
I think that's it.
I remember that. Okay.
And it's actually really sweet. Like the guy they picked for the first Joe Schmo is actually seemingly a really nice person.
Is it kind of like jury duty?
Yeah, I was going to say,
It's exactly the same premise. Yeah.
Sounds like it, yeah.
does James Marsden play himself, but stupider?
Or more brilliant. Who knows?
I know.
Well, she married Hayes Hargrove in 2005, was married for 5 years until 2009. And then she had just had like 5 other small roles, getting work before SNL, which we talked about. She was on 139 episodes, 7 primetime Emmy noms for her work on that show over the years, too. That's a big deal.
Yeah, from 2008 to 2009, she was in more sketches than any other cast member, which I thought was impressive.
Tiny hands.
The Target lady.
Yeah.
I mean, that has legs. I think they're still doing commercials with her in it.
They brought her back.
I mean, anything with her and Maya Rudolph, those 2 are 2 peas in a pod on SNL, so I always enjoy their work together. Good comparison for when we get into Munson Meter territory, too.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about Knocked Up. This could have been first major role, but it's a small role, but it's pretty memorable.
I love the joke. She is the assistant to the TV producer who they can't legally say that Katherine Heigl would lose the baby weight. And so while the TV producer is kind of dancing around it, Kristen Wiig's just like, I just think it's gross. I think you look fat. It's so. I think her subtle comments are so funny.
Yeah, tighten up.
Get it up.
It's like, yeah, and actually the audience is reacting really well to it. She goes, "Oh, really?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm surprised too."
I was surprised.
I was really shocked by that. I was really shocked by that.
It was vibes of the Target lady, basically, just in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's go to first major role. Brother Solomon plays Janine, and Cori drew this one.
Yeah. Imagine if you wanted to make Dumb and Dumber without the charm. That's what this film is.
Yeah.
I fucking love this movie.
Do you really? Okay. I cannot wait to hear why.
I own it on DVD.
You paid good American dollars for this film, is what you're saying.
$3.99 from Walmart, in college.
I mean, that's an investment, my friend. I want to start off by saying that this film is directed by who I think is a comedic genius, Bob Odenkirk.
Yeah.
But I don't know what happened to the actual execution of this film. It is not a good movie, but there are some redeeming qualities to the film, and she is one of them. So she plays in this movie kind of the straight person, the straight character, the straight man who is kind of the straightforward, reasonable foil to these 2 ridiculous idiots. This is also going to start her pattern of being in films with Bill Hader, with Will Forte. She's been in multiple films with both of those actors, even tiny roles. They stacked it with a group of hardworking LA comedians. Jenna Fisher plays a small role in this film. I have one actor nemesis in my life, one person that I think she's a terrible actress. I can't stand anything she's in, and her name is Malin Ackerman. She's in this film. She's horrible. Anyway, she's in this movie. Dad, who's their hero, former military guy, goes into a coma. You know, the one thing that would make your dad's life complete and would make him even more proud of you than he already is if he gets to see his first grandchild before he dies. And so they spend the entire movie trying to, in a litany of insulting, embarrassing, just shame-filled ways, to get women to have a baby with them. And they find one woman, Janine, who needs the money. And Janine is Kristen Wiig's character. And she decides to have their baby. And they become like this weird dysfunctional family. There's a sight gag at the end of the film, if you don't mind me giving you a spoiler, where Janine's boyfriend is black. And at the end of the film, what do you guys think happens? The baby comes out and it's a black baby.
Oh boy.
Like, that's probably the biggest payoff moment of the whole movie. So yeah, that's the Brothers Solomon.
I didn't know Bob was directing in the 2000s, so I learned something from this.
Yeah. It looks like this is the first film Will Forte wrote.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it leads into some of your criticisms on there.
Yes, I would love to hear Warren's rebuttal.
Yeah, Warren, let's go. Come on. Talk about the brothers.
Oh, for sure. First, like maybe 5 times I watched it. I was with a buddy and we weren't sober any of the times. And so it just became a really quotable movie. But the last maybe 15 times, it's probably just quoting it before it actually happens. You know, dumb stuff like, you know, going in to meet a girl and her dad, and then you kiss the dad on the lips. Because that's the most sincere form of like honor and respect, is kissing the dad on the lips, or letting them know that, you know, you're all up on your taxes so you can stand wherever you want in the grocery store. You know, just funny stuff like that. That's my wheelhouse.
And being intoxicated or inebriated in some way, I'm sure, helps the viewing experience.
It's like an hour and 25 minutes long, so.
Yeah, it's a tight little movie.
Yeah.
Kristen Wiig's 4th build. So good for her early in her career.
Corey, $9 million was lost on this. So
Oh, brother. Are you serious?
yeah, a substantial amount was lost on this.
Oh, man.
Well, let's get to Dewey Cox's 12-year-old girlfriend named Edith from Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. She just never thought Dewey was going to make it, and she wanted to remind him at every turn as he was making it, he was never going to make it.
It's so good, and this movie fucking rocks.
She is in the scene that I quote all the time where, "You can take the kids, but you leave me my monkey."
Don't you dare start writing a song now, Dewey Cox.
Guilty as charged. Semi-Pro plays the bear handler alongside Will Ferrell.
Spumoni.
Dewey's handler? Dewey. I love that scene.
How long you been doing this? It's like 4 or 5 days. I usually do the cats.
She possesses a very authentic white trash energy, so I appreciate her performance in this movie.
I like that they lean into her like being this frail woman in this, and they're like, oh, like she immediately does not have control of the bear the moment you meet her.
She's like trying to talk to him while he's there. So what are you doing later? I'm not ignoring you. I'm just focusing on the bear.
Forgetting Sarah Marshall, she played the yoga instructor alongside Kristen Bell and Mila Kunis.
I don't remember this.
So the reason we don't remember her is because he's doing the weird, like, sexual yoga poses and kind of takes over the class.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the reason we don't remember her.
Classic Russell.
Classic Russell.
She's got jet black hair, so it's almost hard to recognize her.
Yes.
I thought you were talking about Russell.
He does, too.
That guy sucks. Ice Age, Dawn of the Dinosaurs. She played the pudgy beaver mom. So I guess her first of many animated projects over the years.
Yeah, this is her first giant budget film. $90 million.
Made almost $1 billion worldwide.
Uh-huh.
Jeez.
That's got to be one of our biggest returns, right? In case 90 million to over $1 billion.
$797 million profit. World gross $887.
I have no idea which Ice Age movie that is.
No clue. Extract. She played Susie along Mila Kunis. I believe James reviewed this on the Mila Kunis episode.
Oh, yeah.
This movie sucks.
Bateman, right?
Yeah, it's Bateman.
Is she Bateman's wife and she always has sweatpants? Jason Bateman's like married to her. They're always like getting ready for bed and he's hoping for a little something, something, but she always like has on sweatpants and ties them super, super tight, puts in a mouth guard, a breathing strip, like all that really sexy stuff before going to sleep.
Which would be funnier if it wasn't just a normal human existence. It's just how people go to bed.
Yeah, I cherish sleep.
Also, 2009, Whip It. She played Maggie Mayhem alongside Elliot Page. I think that was Elliot Page's like highest critic score when we covered Elliot, and that's a roller derby movie.
Filmed in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful looking film too.
Yeah, I watched this one for the first time.
Oh,
I've owned this movie for a really long time and never just got around to it. I like this movie a lot. It kind of gets stuck in between wanting to do like a handful of things, so it doesn't fully come together for me. It's a good sit for sure. She's fun in it.
how would you describe Maggie Mayhem?
It's against what you would expect from her, probably at this point in her career. Like, she's not doing a ton of comedy in this. She's playing it mostly straight. And she actually kind of has one of the more emotionally effective scenes in the entire movie. So I'd probably say this is the first time you see her really show dramatic job.
And this was Drew Barrymore's first directing movie.
She does a pretty good job directing, not a great job in the film itself.
Yeah.
I did not like her character that much.
It felt a lot like Glow.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually interesting you bring that up because when I was watching this, I thought it might be more effective if it was a series, which is not something I try to say very often. It felt like it was part roller derby movie because they seemed to try to explain roller derby, even though I didn't really understand it by the end. Part like coming of age, self-discovery, part family drama. It's like a part of a bunch of different things, and none of them really quite coalesced. So I feel like with a series, it might have been able to hit all of those beats a little bit better.
I agree with that. It's a very niche film. So, like, I try to walk you through a very niche subculture.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's tough to do, especially with as many women who are pretty solid actors on their own right, all coming together in this one film. I would watch it as a series.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
She's done purely comedy and animated stuff up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
How to Train Your Dragon is going to be our highest critic score. She plays Ruffnut. This is 2010 and 2 sequels, and James drew it.
How to Train Your Dragon has a 99 critic score and a 91 audience score. It is set in a Viking village, and the story follows a Viking by the name of Hiccup, who's voiced by Jay Baruchel, who is a kind of clumsy teenager struggling to live up to the expectations of becoming a dragon-slaying warrior. Hiccup befriends a wounded dragon named Toothless. I would highly recommend it. Film's narrative is compelling and heartwarming and delivers a message about challenging stereotypes and embracing change. Wiig plays a character named Ruffnut, and Ruffnut is one half of a Viking twin duo alongside her brother named Toughnut, who's voiced by TJ Miller. Wiig kind of just brings her trademark humor and quirky comedic timing to this role. I think it makes her a standout amongst the ensemble cast. She's got playful sarcasm, banter, which is kind of what I think she's great at, that kind of dry wit, one-liners, great timing. She also kind of has a lot of over-the-top reactions. Her character is a dragon trainer, like the other teens in the Viking village. And she initially shares the tribe's fear of dragons, but grows to appreciate them after bonding with her dragon named Barf. While her character isn't a central character, her performances really enhances the humor and charm in this movie, which is an incredibly charming movie. It was actually even nominated for an Academy Award. Despite her kind of smaller role, I think she leaves a lasting impression on the audience.
James, what I love about her role in here is she is the one voice actor in that bunch who actually changes and contorts her voice. Everybody else is just like their straight voice.
Mm-hmm.
And at first I was like, wait, is that Kristen Wiig? Because she kind of gives like a raspy version of her voice that if you didn't know she was in it, I don't know if you would be able to tell that's her. I thought that was cool.
If you look up her character online, there's a bunch of different Reddit threads of being like, are you sure that that's Kristen Wiig? Like,
Exactly.
like, can we confirm that that's her?
Yeah, I thought that when I watched it too. I had a hard time picking her out without looking, but I think that's a huge part of what makes a great voice actor.
Yep.
Because there's just a lot into it. So you either have like the ability to just have a great voice for that, like Chris Pratt has a great voice for just doing animated stuff. If you don't have that, you got to be able to do a lot of different things. And she has a special ability to like bring out a lot in voice acting. I also just think this movie's phenomenal. Just from a craft standpoint,
90 for critics, 87 for fans. And it made a ton of money. Very well received on all fronts, which is not common.
It's now fallen prey to the live action.
It's coming.
What?
Yeah, there's a live action remake for that movie now. Which would that be the first non-Disney movie to do that?
Maybe.
Unless you're discarding He-Man, Masters of the Universe. I can't be sure.
I am discarding that, yes.
I mean, Dolph Lundgren come on. And she's how many years into her career?
She started SNL in 2005, so 5 years in.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, to be getting tied to, $160 million projects 5 years into your acting career is a pretty good sign. I've not seen any of these. I can only anticipate there's a lot of training montages with bad 80s rock music.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens.
I can't wait to watch them.
It was actually really good for Gerard Butler to finally have a movie where he doesn't have to hide his accent.
That's right. Let's talk about Date Night. Played Haley alongside Tina Fey, Steve Carell, Mila Kunis, covering the gamut of Date Night. Good comedy. Talked about Date Night a lot in the last 25 episodes.
Yeah.
It is. I love that movie.
Underrated. Doesn't get the love it deserves.
Correct.
I don't remember her character in it, to be completely honest. But
At all.
Who was she in this movie? I watched this in the past month and was shocked to see it on the notes.
I think she's one of her friends at the party.
Yeah, she's one of the wives. She's the one who's getting divorced.
Oh, okay.
And they're both like, what? You mean you're getting a divorce?
Yep.
Got it.
Well, let's talk about a role that we definitely know what she plays, and that's her role as Vicky St. Elmo in MacGruber. We did cover this on Maya Rudolph. It's so stupid, and I love it. God, she's so good.
Top 5 theater experience of all time.
If I'm not mistaken, you guys, when we were conceptualizing this podcast, the two movies we talked about the most were Kingpin and MacGruber. So wasn't there a chance that this podcast is going to be named after MacGruber?
We could have called it KFBR 392 and it would have taken off. I still look routinely in the state to see if that vanity plate's available. It would be the only one that I would ever consider buying. It has never been available.
My favorite bit of Kristen Wiig's in this movie is just how she will sing responses.
Yeah.
It can wait. I just found that really fun.
When she and Groobs are banging it out and she is sitting there, he is not breaking at all and she keeps turning away from the camera there's no music, there's no anything, and she just has to sit there and get absolutely just ground into the bed, and she is just trying to keep it straight and she just can't. It's wonderful.
Despicable Me, another big animated project. Miss Hattie, she was in 3 sequels alongside Steve Carell. The Minions world will just continue to blow up.
There's multiple characters throughout this series.
I think later on she gets to play multiple characters.
She's like second build in the later movies. That's how I remember her. So I don't even remember her in the first movie. She's funny in those movies.
I just realized that All Good Things is on her filmography. Do you guys know what that movie is, right?
Yeah.
Oh, with Ryan Gosling?
Yeah, in 2010. Yeah, this is the movie that's based on the documentary that would eventually be made by Andrew Jarecki about Robert Durst.
Yes.
I think the documentary is called Jinx. I didn't realize she was in this.
He's like 9th build, it looks like.
Still an interesting casting for her to be in this movie.
Yeah.
Just thought that was interesting.
Paul, she played Ruth, a Christian fundamentalist RV park owner.
I think it's hilarious. I love anything with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah, she starts out as this big fundamentalist who couldn't possibly believe in aliens because, biblical reasons, and she changes. That's pretty much it. But the movie's entertaining, unless you're super sensitive to religious stuff.
I just remember the scene where she's learning to swear for the first time.
Oh, so good.
And she's saying the most insane things.
She's like, "Hey, anybody want a snack?" Yeah, you bet your big fat cock I do.
It's like a small child venturing into the world for the first time. Come on. All right, the big one there in the early 2010s, though, Bridesmaid. She played Annie, screenwriter on the film, alongside Chris O'Dowd and Maya Rudolph. She got her first Golden Globe nom. Outside of SNL, her first non-primetime Emmy love.
Great movie.
I feel like this is in the zeitgeist. This is what a lot of people recognize Kristen Wiig from, outside of SNL.
For sure. Was this her first, cornerstone lead?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
She was the first on the call sheet.
This is a career-changing role for sure.
Do we know how much she got paid?
No.
Probably a lot, though, since she wrote the movie and starred in it.
Yeah, I would hope so.
I bet she made a percentage of the box office.
While we're talking about this, I am watching Sunday Night Football, and they just had a SNL 50th anniversary show ad, and she was one of the people that popped up with the likes of Dana Carvey, and
Yeah.
even though he's an asshole, he's hilarious. Chevy Chase, Eddie Murphy, like all these people, but she was up in the little montage of notable people. So just
She's got 2 peaks on her IMDb where she peaked at number 11, and this is the first one, and then the second one will eventually be Barb and Star go to Vista Del Mar. But like to your point, Cori, yes, this is 100% the first time when people are like, that movie's great because of her.
Those 2 movies are the only 2 movies that she's written.
Interesting.
Oh, okay.
This is like a certified classic, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You don't get a ton of these. Like, everyone says everything they like is a classic, but this is like a certified crossover. She is a large reason as to why this movie is very good. And it's not just the comedic stuff. She makes the dramatic stuff work.
Yeah.
The stuff in movies like this that make them classics. Because it's not just hilarious, even though it is hilarious. It's not just that. It's also an interesting movie.
Yeah, she's the person who introduces the stakes and keeps them sustained without pissing you off or being like, okay, enough already. Like, stop complaining. There are very few films where a woman is dissatisfied for 95% of the film that don't irritate me. But this is one of those films where it's so well written and there's enough comedic levity where it's not irritating. You genuinely feel for her.
Good point.
And you're rooting for her, even though she is despicable for large segments of this movie.
I feel like her character's pretty straight in this movie, and a comedy happens to her
Yes.
rather than her being zany. And like I think some of the other characters are just funny, whereas I think the comedy happens to her. Like you said,
most of the Rose Byrne stuff is being played off of her.
Yes.
And so that performance is allowed to shine because of the way that she plays it. But what you are speaking to, Cori, is what I think makes her a really interesting and special actor. Is she is endearing all the time.
yeah,
It's why I think her emotional scene in Whip It is the most effective to me because of her. You don't know much about that character. You don't even know a ton. Like, their relationship isn't hugely developed, but she's able to bring that out because of how earnest she is and how much you kind of just buy in to whatever it is that she's doing. The same is true in this. Like, I'm not ever irritated by her or annoyed by her because I'm still rooting for her.
Yeah.
It's what is repetitive all throughout her acting, and I think is the thing that separates her from a lot of other comedians.
Her rivalry with Rose Byrne in this is so funny to me. The scene where she's crying and Kristen Wiig uses that as an opportunity to like put her down, since Rose is like the perfect friend throughout the whole movie. She's like, "Wow, you're really ugly when you cry." And Rose immediately fires back. She's like, "No, I'm not. I look pretty good. I look pretty good."
2011 apparently was the year of Maya Rudolph and Chris O'Dowd because she was also in Friends with Kids, played Missy.
As I was preparing for this, I was thinking to myself, there are very few times when I tape with you guys that I feel my age. It hit me like, oh my God, I'm a 47-year-old woman. The movies that probably 10 years ago I wouldn't have been interested in, now I'm more interested in. And Friends with Kids is one of those ensemble films that in my 30s I would have been like, this is lame as hell. Like, no, thank you. Friends with Kids now is like one of my favorite comfort films. So you have Maya Rudolph, you have Adam Scott, you have John Hamm, you have Jennifer Westfeld in this film, Chris O'Dowd, Megan Fox. And this film is about people growing into their age and discovering what life is like as a real, like, grown-up adult. It's a movie you can watch again and again. She's a comedic character, but she, again, is surrounded by an ensemble that has a lot of heart.
Who's her counterpart, like her romantic counterpart in this?
Her husband is played by...
It looks like it might be John Hamm based on the photos I'm seeing.
Yeah, like they're paired together. Yeah, that would make sense. Yes, that would make sense because he's kind of like a ne'er-do-well drunkard, kind of sex obsessed. They're having like sex in the bathrooms and stuff. I don't know how to describe it. They're just kind of the messy disaster couple of the group.
So it's as if she and John Hamm from Bridesmaids were an actual couple in a movie?
Exactly that.
All right, Warren, talk a little bit about Arrested Development. She played young Lucille Bluth, 7 episodes in 2013.
The original 3 seasons of Arrested Development are in the Mount Rushmore of TV shows of all time. The other one's not great, but her playing a young Jessica Walter is hilarious. She does a really good job just kind of being a drunk asshole.
Skill.
Extremely quick-witted, tears down everybody with no remorse.
Anchorman 2, it's like the first of a couple times where she's in sequels of big comedies. So Anchorman 2, Zoolander number 2, there might be another one in there too. We've covered a lot of people that were in Anchorman 2. I mean, I think she's the 7th actor who made it in that world. Secret Life of Walter Mitty, she plays Cheryl, basically Ben Stiller's endearing co-working crush. A lot of people don't like that remake of Secret Life of Walter Mitty. I thought it was okay. I like Ben Stiller, so I didn't mind it, and she plays it pretty straight.
It's a good enough movie.
That movie's an annual rewatch for me. I love that film. Well, we know it didn't crush at the box office.
No.
When my wife was working in New York before we were married or really even dating, they were filming this in her building.
Oh, like the office building scenes?
Yep. They had to go in through the back for a couple days. She remember seeing like Adam Scott walking around and doing some stuff in the first floor atrium area.
Let's talk about Skeleton Twins, played Maggie. The Critics' Choice nom for her role. A brother and sister who are both suicidal and are going through it.
Never watched it. Sounded too depressing, so didn't even give it a shot. Even the cover of the movie, they just look miserable. So I was like, I'd rather not.
I concur.
You know I watched this, and you know I love this. I love this movie so much. I mean, it's sad in the sense of like, it addresses its subject matter head on, and it doesn't really turn away from it.
Not at all.
Which I appreciate. If you're gonna dive into this, then go for it. And this movie does that. I find it to be relatively hopeful, though. What we need in life, whether it be mental illness stuff or depression or anxiety or just in general, what we need to thrive and get through things is connections, community, as people. And this movie dives into that a lot. I think the staying power of that message grows as we as a society go further and further apart, because the loneliness of these two characters is very palpable. You feel that separation in the first, several minutes of the movie. And it's really just them coming together to heal that loneliness, which is, or keeping them in the position that they're in. I find this to be a beautiful movie and amazingly well acted. The person that I thought about a lot when I think about Kristen Wiig was Bill Hader.
Yeah.
Because Bill Hader is such a success. She reminds me a lot of the things I like about him. And it's that same earnestness that I talked about before. It's that same endearing quality. You are interested in what she's doing. She lures you in and you believe it. So them pairing together to do this is gold.
You sold me.
I just think it's interesting for somebody who's made a career doing comedic work to take a departure from this is a really cool pivot for her 10 years ago.
It's a very casually funny film.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Those two together are able to bring out real humor in the midst of all of this like sadness, which is lends to the overall message of what it is.
How much money did this make, Case?
It made $5.8 million, but it only had a $1 million budget.
Yeah.
So for her to be taking on this role at this point in her career and pretty much making nothing is an interesting and kind of an inspiring pivot for her career.
One thing you notice even maybe kind of earlier in her career is, she's famous at this point for being funny, but that hasn't stopped her from taking on dramatic roles.
I think it's clear she likes to work with her friends.
Yes.
And she picks material that reflects her friend's sensibility, her sensibility. I mean, we didn't talk about this, did we? Did we skip over Girl Most Likely, which she executive produced?
Yeah.
And that film it's a fish out of water story. And I just think she likes to work with her friends. I really appreciate that about her, that she picks projects that reflect who she probably is and the people she likes to work with and around. And if she doesn't like to work with and around you, she's not going to spend 3 weeks, much less 3 months, much less 11 months working on a project with you,
Well, staying on the indie movie train, Diary of Teenage Girl, 2015, plays Charlotte. She plays a hippie mom in that. It's the first time I rewatched it since I saw it back in 2015. Kind of an uncomfortable movie for the first half.
Very problematic.
Sleeping with a 15-year-old. And
Belle Pally is the lead in this film, and Kristen Wiig plays her mom. And Kyle, I don't know what you think about Belle's acting style, but you don't see a lot of Kristen Wiig in this film in a way that makes you care for her.
No, she's.
It's a rough watch.
I remember liking it when I first saw it in 2015, but I think I was in my like, ooh, I love all new films phase.
Yeah.
I was trying to explain. I'm like, well, it's the 70s, right? So it's a different time, but it's a well acted film with some really problematic plot points. Is probably the best way I would put it.
Yeah, it's a trauma rooted film with a lot of sexual trauma on a young person, and it's always hard to watch. It's a good example of like Kristen Wiig probably reading a script and thinking, well, this will be interesting.
I haven't watched it, but I'm assuming Skarsgård is the one who is doing the abusing here.
Yeah. Accurate.
He seems to do that a lot in movies.
He's such a phenomenal piece of shit.
Yes. If you have a skill, you have a skill.
Yeah.
Credit where it's due.
I'm looking at the IMDb for this movie, and Kristen Wiig's third build on this. This is exciting. However, Willie, who plays Domino the cat, is second build, which is not something you see very often.
I think Willie's PR team did some things there because he's not that big of a focal point of the story.
I can't offer a proper defense for this movie because I haven't seen it in a long time. I can only say what I remember. I absolutely love this movie, probably in large part of how directly it leans in to the discomfort and the trauma that's happening. But it is something that, as I've said many a times on here, I would not recommend this to a younger person who is watching movies, because this movie would not make it through anything in 2024.
Okay, how about The Martian? She played Annie, basically the PR rep for NASA.
I love this movie.
Same.
Again, crushed in critics, audience, and in the box office. So very well received all the way around.
Much easier to watch than Diary of a Teenage Girl.
Yes.
And she's very one note in her character. There's not a lot of complexity to her character. She's just a person that's constantly like, what are we going to try to tell the public? Okay, well, that's bad. We just left that guy there, but sure. Okay.
So essentially, all of these characters have to be one note, but they all have to carry a different note. So Jeff Daniels had to be a bit of a hard ass. Chiwetel Ejiofor is playing both sides. You know, Sean Bean is like the good guy, but he's crazy. And Kristen Wiig is, I think her talents are used really well here because, again, it's earnestness. She like kind of recognizes like, hey, this is really terrible situation that we're in. And she's the one that kind of vocalizes it in a way that doesn't feel manipulative. She's the first one that kind of says something that felt like, hey, we all know this is terrible, right? It's not a huge part. It's really small, but like in a role where all of those bit parts have to work, she was casted well.
One of my favorite things from this movie was an article that was written that discussed how much money it would cost to save Matt Damon in all of his movies if we really were to spend money on it. And this was in 2015. They estimate it was upwards of $900 billion. Saving Private Ryan, saving him. Syriana, Green Zone, Elysium is where you take that base jump, $100 million. Interstellar, looking at probably $500 billion. The Martian, $200 billion. So this guy calculated $900 billion plus in 2015. So definitely over $1 trillion at this point.
This is the kind of dollars we invest in the guy who wrote Good Will Hunting.
That's right.
Then we regret it after watching Downsizing.
Well, let's get to another probable stinker that Case laid on this grenade, because I think Warren was originally supposed to do the Deadly Adoption from 2015, and Case was like, yeah, let's give him Sausage Party. I'll tackle a Deadly Adoption.
Thanks, Case.
This movie ain't good. This movie is not reviewed well. Deadly Adoption is a 2015 movie starring Will Ferrell and Kristen Wiig. It was intended to be a nod and a wink project parodying Lifetime dramas that have become pretty much a genre of their own. In fact, this movie was released on June 20th, 2015 on the Lifetime network commemorating its 25th anniversary. You're going to release a movie on your channel.
It's making fun of you.
Yeah, it made no sense.
Yeah.
It fits with everything else that goes on with this movie. It was written by Harper Steele, and it was directed by Rachel Lee Goldenberg, who Will Ferrell was a big fan of, having seen some of her TV work. And this was her feature-length directorial debut. It's a Lifetime movie thriller about a couple who, through a tragedy, lost an unborn child. Kristen Wiig is the mother. Grief-stricken, they agree to adopt a child from an expecting mother. The pregnant mother is faking her pregnancy and is setting up a revenge plot, which turns into a ransom plot. The tone of this movie is just off. I don't even think the acting is poor in it. The execution of what they were trying to do, it was just way off. I've never heard Will Ferrell talk about this movie. I've never heard Kristen Wiig talk about this movie. I had no idea this existed, and I'm a fan of both. And I just think it's a project that they all agreed, hey, we just missed. Let's move on. And that's what they did. And that's probably what we should do.
Case, I can't say I watched it, but I saw the cover. And Will Ferrell's facial hair looks like Ellis from Die Hard. And that tells me everything I need to know about what I would experience.
Hey, Ellis is way cooler than Will Ferrell's character.
No, Ellis was a piece of shit. Don't you glorify that man. That character's awful.
The idea of parroting a Lifetime movie with those two people is really funny. So I wish they would have did that.
It should be really funny.
From a PR perspective, I'm going to give you guys some context on this film because it was really PR genius in terms of their willingness to lean into the bit. Aubrey, you're right. They promoted this film and they were unrelenting in the bit. So you saw the same Lifetime promotional packages, but it was like they had been doing Lifetime movies their entire career. There was no reference of previous work. They didn't act like Will Ferrell was one of the biggest stars on the planet. They didn't talk about SNL, their history on SNL. I mean, it was a committed to the bit thing.
Yeah.
And then they ran this movie one time. And unlike Lifetime films where you can watch them 50 times, it was kind of like a War of the Worlds thing where they were like, it's been stripped from air. Like it was so controversial that Lifetime had to pull it from its roster immediately.
It didn't hit streaming until 2020. It took 5 years to even be able to find it somewhere.
Yeah. Just from a PR perspective, what they did was kind of brilliant.
Corey, I think they even did, like, even before the whole project took off, I think they leaked it. And then, like, Will Ferrell went on social media and was like, oh, since somebody leaked that we're doing this movie, the project's off.
Yeah.
Because I think he's one of the producers of it.
Yes.
So then they still went ahead and did it, but
they certainly did not need a literal Lifetime movie on their credit list. Like they didn't need, that wasn't a gap on their IMDb's.
They should be thankful for Joshua Alston of the AV Club. He's of the 7 critics who rated this on Rotten Tomatoes. He's the only one that didn't mark it as rotten.
There's only 7.
Yeah.
That means that they sent screeners to less than 25. Think about that. That never happens.
It was filmed in 15 days. And once again, it shows.
And it felt like a lifetime, didn't it, Case?
Ah, good grief. Yes, it did.
All right, Ghostbusters 2016. Looks like Chris Hemsworth. Movie with a lot of fanfare.
One of those movies where I feel like I have to go out of my way to be like, this movie doesn't suck because the Ghostbusters are women. This movie just sucks. It's two different things, all right? It got so much hate because they replaced the normal Ghostbusters with a female cast, and that was frustrating because I wanted to give it the normal amount of hate that it deserves for non-sexist reasons.
Yeah, I was going to quote Eric Cartman and say, women are funny, get over yourself.
I didn't mind this movie. In fact, I rewatched it for this episode, and I certainly didn't hate it. I thought some of the characters were a little bit over the top, but I really liked her in it. I thought Chris Hemsworth was hilarious.
Hemsworth's the best bit.
He is so funny in that movie.
That makes it all more complicated, doesn't it?
Yeah. They objectified him at such a hilarious level.
This is such an interesting movie to me. Because this got review bombed.
Uh-huh.
I can't remember if this was like the first one that took off in that way.
Oh, yeah.
The critics kind of tried to balance it out in a way that I thought was odd, which to me, this is just a perfect case of two things can be true at one time. It's not a problem that these women are in this movie. It's also not very good. I think there's a lot of good ideas. The Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy kind of setup works for me.
Uh-huh.
I like that. I think it's interesting. I think the way that they go about it is interesting. The callbacks worked for the most part. I found those to be cleverly kind of weaved in there. What I didn't like was the Kate McKinnon and Leslie Jones of it. I'm not a huge Kate McKinnon fan. She's a lot.
Yeah.
And, she's a lot. And that Leslie Jones is the same way. She's a lot.
I didn't find them funny either. Just zany.
Ironically enough, for the people that tried to review bomb this and all of the people that hated it because it was women, they've made this movie stick in film history. Like, I'll never forget this movie now, even though it is a completely forgettable blockbuster comedy remake.
I mean, I just gotta say, as the only woman on this podcast, so Paul Feig, what he tries to do is position women comedians as able to hold up some pretty thin scripts. I will say that one of the things that Paul Feig films suffer from all the time is just poorly constructed narrative. So that's why I think people get bored so quickly, is the jokes aren't enough to hold up a thin story. He really loves Kate McKinnon. He loves Kristen Wiig. He clearly loves Leslie Jones. Like, he loves those women. He knows Melissa McCarthy's a genius.
Yeah.
But it's the material that F's them up every time. That if you don't have a good heart through line through that, it's going to come off as shallow as hell. I really enjoy this Ghostbusters film, probably just because I'm like, I cannot dislike anything that these women are in, because I know they're working their asses off. I completely understand the critique of it just didn't work.
Yeah.
It needed to be rated R, and you needed to let Melissa McCarthy cook, like in Heat
Yes.
and Bridesmaids. Like, just separate it more from the original content by just going all in. And I think that is like his bread and butter.
The point you're missing here is this wasn't a movie created for art. This was a movie created to make money. And so to do that, it needs to be PG-13 so we can get children to go see this movie.
Kids can go.
Yeah, we're not trying to make a good movie here. We're trying to make money. It's important to remember that throughout this process.
Mm-hmm.
He's not wrong.
How do we create something that's just on the borderline of not inappropriate?
It's hard to take into consideration the original Ghostbusters from '84 is rated PG. That includes Dan Aykroyd getting blown by a ghost.
Yeah, PG in the 80s is not PG today, all right? This is very, very different.
Yeah.
Wild time.
Yes.
That's for sure. Let's go to a film with a plot that involves talking hot dogs, and that is Sausage Party. She played Brenda, and Warren has this one.
I believe it was opening day. Went and saw this one because why not? Seth Rogen spent 8 years trying to find a studio interested in the project. Those he sent the script to thought that there was too much religious subject matter and obscene content, which, sure. Sony, the eventual distributor of the film, rejected it outright. But then they decided it was okay to make the interview about assassinating a very alive person at the time. Obviously, violence over anything sexual is our country's MO. Even after it was approved, the script was leaked in that 2014 Sony hack. So Rogen ended up rewriting it again, just to make sure that everything was good. Funny enough, conceptually, it's about food that doesn't know that the end goal of food is to be eaten. And so to be selected by humans at the grocery store was the highest honor, similar to, the green aliens from Toy Story. They realize that they're getting eaten, and so they decide to stage a coup and kill all the humans. Incredible cast. Probably the most obscene 2-minute scene in a movie all time. The big orgy scene at the end. Full spoilers intended. I remember nobody was making a noise in the theater. Everybody was just totally aghast. What in the world is happening? There are pitas banging bagels, banging hot dogs, banging tacos, just absolutely absurd. Seth Rogen, Jonah Hill, Kristen Wiig, James Franco, Bill Hader, Salma Hayek, Nick Kroll, Craig Robinson. It's a hilarious movie. I haven't watched any of kind of the series that they had come out on. I don't even know what platform it's on.
Foodtopia.
Yeah.
I'm not shocked that so many studios turned it down when it has so many hard comments about religion to the point where there's a Israel and Palestine running bit, and then those two characters end up banging each other. And it's also intentionally mock Pixar movies for children, but it's for adults clearly. I think Kristen Wiig's funny too, as it's a hot dog and a bun, and she plays the bun. I think the first time they do anything intimate, they touch fingertips. I thought that was so funny how we touched
Just
your
the
hips. They get they got so
I
excited.
just want to touch the tips.
I'm reading the reviews because I know there's an 82-50 split on Rotten Tomatoes. So I'm like, let's read what the audiences are saying. And it looks like it's been review bombed by the religious folks at play.
I saw this in theaters. I had no idea what I was walking into. It's important that the stage gets set, though.
You raw dogged.
Yeah, trailers like that. I very rarely watch trailers.
He's like big fan of VeggieTales, so he's like, this got to be in that universe, right?
Wow.
We also kind of were watching everything at this time. Like every single thing that came out, we were watching at this time. So it was just like, go to the movies and see this. I went to Southeastern University. That's a Christian university. There was a time in my life that I was very, very religious. My wife was homeschooled, part of a religious community. There was a time in her life she was very, very religious. I still consider myself to be religious, but not as much as I was at the time. I was much more religious at this time. Went and saw this movie. I think this movie is hilarious. But I had no idea what I was getting into. I left there like, I can't talk to anybody I know about this movie because they will not only disown me, it'll be a whole situation.
I just like Audrey watched this and couldn't talk to any of his friends about it. That makes me laugh more than anything.
Not at all. Not at all.
You get to talk about it finally. That's exciting. We're here for you, Audrey.
Liberating.
All right, The Spoils Before Dying. She played Dolores. 2016, got SAG and Emmy noms. And Mother. She plays Harold, which is essentially the publicist for him. Oh, look at her bringing that PR background from The Martian over to what I think is Warren's favorite film ever. Big fan, if I recall correctly.
This is on your Mount Rushmore of movies, right, Warren?
Yep. I still remember going to watch it with my buddy Clark, and it ended, and typical Aronofsky, like no music or anything, and just like black credits. And I blew the loudest raspberry I think I've ever done in my life. And the person sitting in front of me turned around and like scoffed audibly, was like, and we were walking out, and this guy and a friend or two were like talking in front of my buddy and I as we were walking out. And he was just like, oh, I really love the commentary on this. And I was just like, dude, shut the fuck up. You have no idea what you just watched. Like, I don't know what I just watched. That was the biggest pile of crap I've ever had to sit through. I could argue with Rigby about that. I remember he was like, oh, I loved Mother. I was like, of course you love Mother, you asshole. I don't get it. You're going to tell me that you really like Mulholland Drive? Like, get fucked. Get out of here.
I don't remember her character at all. That's the funniest part about it.
I remember her character because it's like she shows up at like the height of everything going crazy. And I remember the first time I watched it, things are heating up in the house and Kristen Wiig just shows up. And I go, whoa, Kristen Wiig. That was it. She doesn't do a ton.
Aronofsky, something different. That's a very different director than she normally works with. She went from Paul Feig to Darren Aronofsky, so that's a shift. Trying some new things, let's say that. And trying some really bad Matt Damon movies like Downsizing, where she played Audrey alongside Christoph Waltz.
I'll say what I said when we covered it for Christoph Waltz. I really like the concept. I think there's a lot they could have done with this where it's, the future's resources are limited, and so you can shrink yourself to save your money on retirement. And the only people who actually do it are the middle class and dictators. And they unfortunately just went with a vehicle that allows Matt Damon to make divorce jokes.
I haven't seen this movie in a long time, and I started rewatching it today. And I made it about an hour through, and then I had to stop to record. I didn't stop it because I didn't like it. I stopped it because I had to get on this. And here's why I hated this movie the first time I saw it. Like full on hated it. And I think it's because the trailer was amazing. And so I was all into this movie before it came out. And I was so disappointed because this was one of the few trailers that I watched because I was told to watch it. And the trailer is very interesting. And the movie, watching it again, I guess I'd have to report back when I watch the second hour. I don't hate this movie. I find it to be very interesting. I do remember that the second hour is where I was like, what are we doing now?
She plays his wife, right?
Correct.
2019, she got engaged to Abby Rothman, still together today, and had twins via surrogacy, which we've seen a few times with Munsons. Had to go that route to bring children into the world, but good for her, good for them. And that's going to take us to Where'd You Go, Bernadette, our largest audience gap. Last review from Aubrey, and she plays a character named Audrey. I did my best not to screw that up.
Appreciate that. Audrey, one of my least favorite names. Where'd You Go, Bernadette? 2019 movie. Richard Linklater, written and directed. It's based on a book of Maria Semple. Cate Blanchett plays, I would call her a curmudgeon, basically, but this really successful architect because of some unfortunate happenings and things that happened to her specifically, people taking advantage of her and essentially undercutting her, turn her into this kind of mean, and she kind of turns into a recluse, basically. She becomes socially anxious. She has other mental health issues. She becomes kind of angry. She goes at it with her neighbor, which that's the Kristen Wiig character, is her neighbor, who plays basically the Christina Applegate character in Bad Moms. That's who Kristen Wiig is. Great source material on that. That's basically what she is. And she does a great job, by the way, which then made me think of Kristen Wiig playing that character in Bad Moms. And I was just like, just when I think I couldn't like this movie anymore, I want to see this in whatever third installment they try to do. Cate Blanchett basically has like a mental breakdown. Her family proceeds to try to have an intervention. And this is where the movie kind of goes off the rails in the middle when they try to have an intervention, and she kind of runs away, which gives you the title of the movie. I think this movie is good. In the middle, it loses you a little bit. And if you're someone that isn't caught up into what Cate Blanchett's doing and how her character's going through what she's going through, it could definitely trip you up totally, and you could be all out on this movie. But what Cate Blanchett's doing and how this movie is approaching, for lack of a better phrase, mental breakdown, I find to be very compelling. And so I watched this movie after The Skeleton Twins, which made for quite the depressing It worked out as a double feature because I said The Skeleton Twins was about finding community and finding people to help you get through struggles. This movie is about finding purpose and what happens when you allow your trauma and your depression or your sadness or just the regular walks of life to take away your purpose, what can happen to you and those around you, how it affects everybody. This movie is very much about that. So I found it again to be very hopeful, much lighter watch, enjoyable. Cate Blanchett is one of the greatest actors to ever do acting. Kristen Wiig in a small role is good, and you kind of hate her. She does a really good job pulling that out.
Just like it was with the book, there's some people who say that this is like their favorite book all time. You either get it or you don't. Mm-hmm. And I think people were kind of falling in the same thing with the movies. When my wife found out that they were making this a movie, she was like, oh my God, I can't wait to see it, because she said she loved the book. And I don't think she's still seen it 5 years later. So I don't think she read into reviews too much. People were like, yeah, just don't ruin it, blah, blah, blah.
I'm guessing the audience gap here is largely because critics had such high expectations for Linklater, and with Cate Blanchett, like that should be a home run, and it just sounds like it wasn't to some audiences. I don't know.
To me, the classic case of going in with high expectations and allowing those expectations to dictate how you view a movie, which I think is unfair.
Yeah.
And so this happens all the time. I am particularly annoyed when it happens with critics, because it's literally your job is to circumvent that and not allow that to be a thing that affects how you go about this. Because as a film that's dealing with a very specific thing, it approaches the topic in an interesting way. And it reaches a conclusion that I found to be satisfying and compelling and interesting and thought-provoking. I don't quite know what else a movie like this is supposed to do. There are problems with it. It's not perfect.
2020 to present. So Wonder Woman 1984, Barbara comes out swinging as the villain of this DC project.
This movie's not good.
It may not be a good movie, but this is actually the first time that I was watching a Kristen Wiig movie, and I was like, oh, she's pretty good at stuff, not comedy. And then I started circling back on all the stuff I had missed from her.
I wanted to like this movie because I really enjoyed the first one. Mm-hmm. I was excited when this one came out. I was like, oh, Kristen Wiig doing something different. I was glad that it was her as the villain initially, because I was like, well, yeah, most of these are about some scrawny person who something happens, and then, basically Tobey Maguire and, becomes Spider-Man. Great. And then each time I watched her in like the fight scene where she looks preposterous, I was just like, just make me laugh, clown. That's kind of how I just wanted to feel about it.
So you liked it?
That's my roundabout way of saying yes. I hated this movie.
Kristen Wiig wasn't the problem with this movie. I think this movie had a lot of other problems with it.
Yes.
We all know who the main problem is.
Could it be Gal Gadot's acting range, potentially?
Yes.
Yes.
Ding, ding, ding.
That's why it's so believable. It was almost like she actually is Wonder Woman in the movie, so you want to believe it more.
I just hope everybody had fun and Kristen Wiig got a nice paycheck.
Oh, I'm sure she did.
I just hope everyone had fun. That's very kind. So nice.
We know they didn't get a good paycheck because they lost money.
Sure, she got a really nice paycheck through this film.
I lost money.
30 mil. Yeah, it was budgeted for 200 million. World grossed 170 million.
I don't think she's going to make James Gunn's DC universe. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think she's going to be sticking around.
No.
Are we good? Kind of shift into Barb and Star?
Yeah.
I do not want to shift to this.
You do. You are ready to talk about Kristen Wiig playing two characters, and Barb and Star go to Vista Del Mar, Sharon and Star. Which version of Kristen Wiig do you like more? The pale albino or the Minnesota accent talking version?
I thought it was stupid. I thought it was funny. I enjoy it. It is very much an SNL type movie where you just have to accept that it's a stupid premise and enjoy the jokes.
She seemed like she was having fun on set. She got to do two very different things. The internet was obsessed with this movie for a hot minute. I didn't hate it. Didn't love it, but I didn't hate it.
This movie made Critic's top 10 list at the end of the year.
Yeah, like critics.
That's crazy.
Critics were all over it.
What the hell is this movie? Someone explain it to me.
Two very white suburbanite women who work dead-end jobs and are like bored with their lives, and one of their friends tells them they should go to Vista Del Mar in Florida to like find themselves and have fun. The jokes are what you would expect based off of that premise, right? Like there's a book club that has like really strict rules. There's like a sex scene that is incredibly over the top because these two women look like they're like the most sexless people on earth. There's like a drug scene, the type of stupid humor that you would expect from that. But I thought some of it was funny.
It was.
They have a threesome, and then when they recap it afterwards, she's like, "Oh, sorry about what I did to you over on that table." She's like, "Well, it was 2 against 1 over there. You know, I had to fight back."
That audibly made me laugh. The plot, Warren, is that this albino woman, once upon a time, because she was made fun of by all of her peers, showed up to this like shrimp festival at Vista Del Mar, and they like launched her out of a human cannon, and she landed on a cruise ship, and so she's made it her entire life's goal to like just kill people with these mosquitoes and shit. So there's a plot to kill all these people with Jamie Dornan. It's a pretty absurd story.
So James, your synopsis, I get it, kind of makes sense. Kyle, I have no fucking clue what you just started talking about.
It doesn't make any sense at all. It doesn't.
Jeez.
It's a dumb comedy. It's an SNL bit that's made into a movie.
I can't believe that was in the same movie.
Yeah, same movie.
The Jamie Dornan song is great.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, he's saying, yeah, it's good.
Is this a musical?
No, there is the musical parts though.
No.
But am I wrong? I mean, that's the plot with the evil albino lady who played by Kristen Wiig.
I do like the running bit with the evil albino lady where Jamie Dornan's like clearly into her, and she breaks the evil character to just like feed him lines and be like, "Oh yeah, we'll totally hang out afterwards." Just like stringing him along the whole time.
I'm looking at some still pictures from this. Do they address how incredible her perm is?
She gives me a vibe like she was like doing like a Tilda Swinton impersonation.
Ah, okay.
I mean, she bagged Jamie Dornan in the film, so it was working.
That perm, she's rocking it. I love it. I'm in love with her now too.
I mean, I gotta say, this clearly like is the through line of you can be a goofy, funny woman and lead a film and bag hot dudes and end up, you know what I mean? Like, I wanted to start this by saying that I think Kristen Wiig is just the ultimate Hollywood cool girl. The Bernadette film, she's like the nasty neighbor, right? But even that, like, you get it. You're like, yeah, I get why you hate this woman, why you hate this entitled, rich white lady who is so above you and thinks she's above all the neighbors. And like, no, I just feel like Kristen Wiig is so cool that she like makes these roles kind of work.
Mhm.
It's like she's going to commit to the bit because she believes in the broader concept. Are we going to talk about her latest Apple TV project?
Palm Royale.
Because Palm Royale is a nice, more glamorous extension of what you guys are talking about.
That was the last thing we had in the show notes.
Yeah, like goofy shit, and she makes it work, and you're rooting for her.
I was told I should watch this. Aspiring debutante, 10 episodes, a couple Emmy noms.
Watch the first episode.
I've watched every episode. I'm gonna drop the F-bomb. I love this fucking show. Aesthetically, it's beautiful.
Let's go.
It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful show. It has some really incredible actresses in it. Allison Janney is the primary villain in this.
Mhm.
She's trying to take down, Kristen Wiig's character, who's the lead character. There are some things that happen in Palm Royale that, again, to go along with Ghostbusters, go along with Vista Del Mar, go along with Where'd You Go, Bernadette, are ridiculous. And somehow she makes it work. It is obvious that this is kind of her dream aesthetic. You guys don't talk a lot about costuming on this pod, which is fine.
I try, but Kyle edits it out all the time.
Cuts it out.
That's probably true.
The costumes in this show are some of the most beautiful vintage and vintage inspired apparel that I've seen on screen. It's like Valley of the Dolls on more mescaline with more laughs. And again, you're rooting for an underdog. And Kristen Wiig does that so well. I'm down to watch that Barb and Star Vista Del Mar if it sounds like what you guys are describing. If anybody can carry off ridiculous, it's Kristen Wiig. That's my soapbox speech on Kristen Wiig.
That's a good transition because I was wanting to cover Palm Royale anyway, so you knocked it out of the park.
It really is good.
All right, Case, top performances. What you got for us?
Oddly, it was a little bit challenging trying to find a list. I think I found one that we're going to enjoy. It's from slashfilm.com, written by Kira Deschler, and it was released April of 2023. And they appear to be all movies.
I'm going for it. Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters is number 11.
There. How to Train Your Dragon.
How to Train Your Dragon series is on here, and it looks like it's 6th.
Where's Bridesmaids on that list?
Bridesmaids is not on the list. No, I'm just joking. It appears to be number 1. The author says Kristen Wiig has been in some great movies over the course of her career, but one stands above the rest, and that film, of course, is Bridesmaids.
Mm-hmm.
Whip It.
Whip It is number 3.
Oh.
Skeleton Twins.
Yeah, it's got me on there.
Yeah.
Skeleton is number 7.
Date Night.
Date Night is not on the list.
What about Barb?
Barb is not on the list.
All right, Martian.
Martian is not on the list.
Girl Most Likely.
Girl Most Likely is not on the list.
Wow.
Friends with Kids.
Friends with Kids is not on the list.
Wow.
All right, I give up.
We're getting Sarah Marshall's on there. It has to be.
I don't think her role was big enough in there. So we're missing another series a film series she was in.
Despicable Me.
Despicable Me.
Despicable Me is on the list. It looks like it's 8.
You might as well just fill in the gaps for us the rest of the way.
Diary of a Teenage Girl.
That is not on the list. Rounding out the list, at number 12, Secret Life of Walter Mitty.
Oh, good for that.
We said Ghostbusters at 11. Welcome to Me at number 10. Adventureland at number 9. We said the Despicable Me series at 8. Skeleton Twins at 7. How to Train Your Dragon, 6. Barb and Star go to Vista Del Mar at 5. Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story at 4.
Yes.
Whip It at 3. Diary of a Teenage Girl at 2. I'm sorry, that was on the list. And Bridesmaids was number 1.
Oh, it's not on? No, it's number 2. I lied significantly.
I stand corrected. I owe you an apology, sir. You were right. I was wrong.
Man, this list is just proof that the internet has everything. A list of the top 12 best movies of Kristen Wiig's career.
Yeah, everything.
We didn't cover Welcome to Me.
Mm-mm.
She has a lot of sex in that movie. It's one of those movies where I could tell why people didn't like it. Teeters between comedy and drama, and she plays her role incredibly straight, and everyone else kind of makes jokes off of it. And because she plays it incredibly straight, she just has like a severe mental illness. Watching someone with a severe mental illness have a ton of sex could be pretty unsettling.
All right, let's get into the Munson Meter. What we do, we rank every actor on a scale of 0 to 100 based on a variety of factors that could include longevity, project choice, pop culture impact, their acting range, their awards footprint, other talents, personal life, comedic chops, box office success, or anything else that matters to us as Munsons. We're going to start this time with Aubrey.
Kristen Wiig is a person that I have known throughout a lot of her career. Even though I kind of get boxed in with comedies on this podcast, I love comedies and I love her as a comedian. But what's always intrigued me with her is she has shown not just the ability, but the willingness to do dramatic stuff. She really leans into that. And something that Cori said earlier about her commitment to whatever she's doing, whatever thing she's asked to do, she goes 100% fully committed to it. And that will always work in movies. She is clearly very charismatic. She's very talented. She's very funny. And the dramatic stuff I've seen from her shows a range that is underrated. She's a very good actor, which makes it hard for me to place her on this list. There's some things I wish I would be able to see her do more. Welcome to Me is a movie that I wish I would have seen because it's a more dramatic movie, or at least a dramatic performance, where she is the center of it. The Skeleton Twins was an important one for me to cross off the list, and she absolutely kills with that. She is a terrific actor that I hope I get to see a lot more stuff from, and I think has a wide range that would impress many people. So with all of that, I'm going to go 78.
Case.
I mean, I'm a huge Kristen Wiig fan. I enjoyed her on Saturday Night Live. I think she's got really good range. And I distinctly remember when I was watching Wonder Woman, having that realization of like, holy cow, like, and then I started going back and paying better attention to what she had been doing in her career. What it seems to me is that she is very good with what is in the script. If she's asked to be one note, she is the best one note in the project. If she's asked to be complex, then she's going to be incredibly complex. And I'm going to give her an 85.
Okay. Cori.
I really appreciate that she, again, is committed, 100% committed to her roles. I mean, I almost forget that she was on SNL, but if you just look at her SNL work, it's as prolific as like, I think about like the earlier people who really just ate on that show, like a lot of the people who came from the like preliminary show in Canada. So I think about like Gilda Radner or like people like that. I mean, she's done that type of work on SNL.
Mm-hmm.
So that alone could be enough to give her a good score. I can't wait to see what she does next. I think there's a lot of people that I kind of look at this show as like a retrospective on, and I don't really think about what projects they're going to pick next because I know they're going to get good work. I mean, Jessica Chastain, she's going to get good work. You know, she's going to get good scripts. People are going to want to attach her to big, expensive projects. But I think that Kristen Wiig is doing the picking here. And I can't wait to see what she picks out of the pile next. Because you know she's looking at good material, and I think she has a really discerning eye. Her most recent project, Palm Royale, is amazing. There's a reason it's Emmy nominated. I just think she's a great storyteller. She drives story forward even when there's not a lot there. I'll give her an 82.
Warren.
My hardest thing, as it is with most actors, is I basically pigeonhole them in their role that I fall in love with, and so yeah, Saturday Night Live being her, you know, what a majority of my consumption of her content is from that. It is hard to even give a shot at a more serious role just because it's, you know, hey, you play the hits, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, inner cliche here. So I haven't really been able to watch many of her roles, and that's a personal problem, not hers. And, you know, based off, Cori, your comments on Palm Royale, I definitely want to give that a shot because I associate Kristen Wiig a lot with like Bill Hader. They're kind of up and coming same time. They did Skeleton Twins, you know, and they each play very similar roles in very similar movies of a supporting character, but where she stands out in Bridesmaids and other movies like that where she is that lead. That's not something that Hader's really had to do. But Bill Hader's career really took off when he did Barry.
Yeah.
I think that's where you see most of his range. And I don't know if Palm Royale is going to be able to be like her version of Barry, that is something that shows that vast range and something that is palatable for a simpleton like me. And then I'm like, okay, now I'm going to go give the other stuff a shot to see like how she got to this point. I give her but her pop culture is early 2010s on SNL was everything. Every single week it was, what is she going to do? What is she going to do? And she got it done.
I love it. Return to form with Warren. Man's never given an actor a 90 or higher. So like 71 is pretty solid,
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't all be awesome. I don't give kids hundreds when I'm grading just to make them feel good. And these actors make a shitload of money so they can suck it up.
I think it's been a while since we covered an act with a mastery of impression. She does a lot of that, and we didn't really talk much about that. But I love that conversation we had earlier about how much of an underrated voice actor she is. Like, she doesn't just rely on her normal voice. I think of some of the best voice actors out there, the people that you don't necessarily know the names, so you wouldn't know their faces. I mean, they're contorting their voices in all sorts of ways. You're not getting that just, hey, I'm Gerard Butler, and I finally found a role that embraces my heritage. That's not what she does. So I give her credit there. You got to respect her SNL run, impact she left on the world of comedy. Prolific. I'll give her credit. She's taken some chances in the past decade. Some landed, some haven't. But like a lot of actors in the 2010s, once streaming became a thing and the world of Hollywood has changed and how they fund films and what's being produced, you got to take some chances. So credit to her there. She's gotten a little bit of awards recognition over the years, but no wins outside of some ensemble performances. So that kind of plays into my score as well. And I just find that comparison with her and Maya Rudolph really fascinating, given both of them were huge on SNL, have gone from Bridesmaids to do a lot of other projects together. And Maya's dabbled in the dramatic side, but just hasn't been as good as Kristen Wiig is in the dramatic world. And I think that disparity kind of explains the differences between how I score those two. So I'm going to give her 72. And James, round us out.
Going last here, I realizing I'm closer to the right score in my mind. At first, when I heard where everyone else's was, I was like, oh man, I'm going to sound like a dick when I give mine. I thought this was a good score I was giving. But yeah, when I first think of Kristen Wiig, I think of Bridesmaids, certified classic. I agree with what Audrey said. Very funny movie. And she wrote it, which means even the parts that you think other actors are doing are funny, there's a good chance she's the one who came up with that punchline. Credit where it's due. That's fantastic. What I didn't realize is how many dramatic roles she has and how good she is in those roles.
Yeah.
Which is what kind of similar to what you had just mentioned, Kyle, when I was comparing her to other SNL castmates like Tina Fey or Maya Rudolph. I thought kind of edged her in front of them in my mind. And so this might not sound like an original score, but I promise if I went before Warren, I would have said the number first. But I am also giving her a 71.
All right. With that gives Kristen Wiig a 76.5, which puts her in 46th place, sandwiched between Richard Gere and Angelica Houston. We've been peppering that area the last 3 episodes because Quaid's in 45th, Gere 47, she's 48th.
I don't want to see them in a movie together, but yeah, sounds about right.
I want to see them in Reagan too.
Is she going to play Nancy?
Yeah.
Well, what a perfect transition, because Aubrey's going to tell us what she's got coming. Let's see if there's a collab with Richard Gere and Dennis Quaid.
There's not, nor is Reagan 2 in development, at least as far as I know. She's got 3 things that I see all in development, so we might have to be waiting a little while to see these. One of them is called The Husbands. No information I can give you on that, except that it's in development. Then there is Tony Erdmann, which is a remake of a movie that got nominated for an Oscar in 2016.
Very good.
This falls in line with the recent trend of remaking successful foreign language films. I'm not a fan of this trend. However, her in it makes me a lot more interested. And then she's writing something that is also in development, and it's the untitled Cinderella Evil Stepsisters project. So if you are a big Kristen Wiig fan, then you should probably take Cori's recommendation and watch Palm Royale. After what she said, I will be revisiting.
Me as well.
Well, we do have an episode coming on January 30th where we're bringing back John Rigby, the better of the two Rigbys, some might say. John was here with us for Allison Janney, William Hurt, Laura Linney, Matt Dillon, and Deborah Winger. The 5 actors on the wheel were Jeff Bridges, Will Arnett, Sean Penn, Noel Guglielmi, and J.K. Simmons. What do we like or dislike about that list?
But you guys can't guess who I don't want it to be.
Is it Noel?
With Will Arnett, we'd get to watch this. What was it? The Solomon Brothers. Wait, what was that movie?
Oh God,
Brother Solomon.
Brother Solomon. So that'd be exciting.
I think it'd be fascinating to watch James do some Noel Guglielmi trivia, considering he's been consuming so much of it for Fast and Furious for so long.
Yeah, it's a catch-22. Isn't that the guy who plays Hector in like every other movie?
Yep, a lot of Hector characters.
Oh, that guy's awesome.
Oh yeah,
big fan of that guy.
It's gonna be fun, but his score would be astronomically low. But good for him, you know.
Yeah,
I've seen my gun. I want to see yours. I love that scene in Training Day.
he's going to pick Sean Penn.
Yeah, maybe the better question here is who is John Rigby going to gravitate towards?
Jeff Bridges.
It's either that or Jeff Bridges.
Yes.
One of those two.
What about jacked up J.K. Simmons?
I think it's strictly because he's not much of a Marvel guy, so I'm going to say no Bridges. He was in Iron Man, and Simmons because he was Spider-Man.
Man, though, I feel like J.K. Simmons is Case's worst nightmare. 234 acting credits.
Oh man.
I was gonna say that's gonna be like a 5-hour pod. Like, good luck with that, gentlemen.
That's my nightmare for creating a fucking show notes for that kind of.
I'm going to talk about the peanut M&M for a half hour.
Cori, who would you pick of this 5 if you were going to make a return?
I'd do Jeff Bridges.
Okay. Warren, what about you?
Do Will Arnett because I wouldn't have to watch anything. I've already seen it all.
Made a huge mistake.
Warren doesn't decide. Cori doesn't decide. John Rigby doesn't decide. Even Mark Rigby doesn't decide. The Will decides, and we'll see what happens.
Will decides.
Oh, brought it back. I appreciate it.
It's an oldie but a goodie. Appreciate having you both here. Tag team effort.
Love being here. This was a chill one. I feel like Lucy Liu was like whiz bang.
Contentious.
This was very like chill. This was a very chill Sunday night conversation. I appreciate it. No words of wisdom other than the news that my bio is going to change, Kyle.
Oh,
Because I am now marrying one of those boys that watches tons of movies with me.
Hell yeah.
Hi, congratulations.
That's awesome.
Congrats.
Telling a group of men that you just got engaged is like the least. It's the most anticlimactic thing I could have said. Guess what? I'm getting married. Whoopity woo. Welcome to the dark side.
like,
You got the equivalent of a fist bump from everybody.
I did. Okay, well, I'll take it.
Congrats, Cori.
Thank you.
It's good to know that you'll be right in every argument you have with your spouse for the rest of your life. Big ups on that. Nothing else. Really enjoyed being back. Can't believe it's been so long.
I'm glad we could get you on your break. That's fantastic. All right, well, as we wrap things, you can find us on Instagram, Munsons at Movies. You can email us, munsonsatthemovies@gmail.com. Any final thoughts from Kristen Wiig?
Oh, this is a very strict lane that I'm on. Welcome to Germany. On Wiedersehen, asshole. Catch you on the flip side, motherfuckers.
Munsons Out.
All right, let's go. Thank you for the education, gentlemen. We've just received a PhD in stupidity. Doctor, shall we?
Okay, all right, that's fine. I get it. You're innocent and I'm guilty. Guilty as charged. Guilty as charged.
Don't you dare write a song right now, Dewey!